It's crazy to think that most people don't even realize the impact that the menstrual cycle has not only on your mood, but also on your behavior, your thoughts, and even your relationships. As a psychologist who spent hundreds of hours researching this, I want to break it all down for you, so that by the end of this video, you will be able to understand your menstrual cycle better than ever before. Until a while ago, I had no idea how much my menstrual cycle was impacting every area of my life. And I quickly realized that most people with a uterus don't know this stuff either. And that's because nobody teaches us. We are taught about how hormones impact our fertility, our sex differences, changes in our physical appearance, but actually our hormones impact so much more. They influence, amongst other things, our metabolism, our stress levels, our mood, our behaviors, our relationships. So it is no surprise that the menstrual cycle, that is inherently characterized by hormonal changes, influences so much more than our reproductive system. In this video, I want to explore with you the menstrual cycle, not only from a biological perspective, but also from a psychological one, so that you can truly understand what's going on in your body and in your mind. Because as I always say, knowledge is power, and the more you know about yourself, the better decisions you can make for your life. So go and get pen and paper so that you can note all of this down. And whilst you do that, let me introduce myself. My name is Brie. I'm a pre-qualified psychologist working in London. And on the past year, I've worked with women and I found out so much about how hormones impact not only our bodies, but also our minds and our mental health. On this channel, I like to share psychology insight as well as lessons from my career and my own personal life to help you become the best possible version of yourself. So if that sounds like something that might interest you, then you might want to subscribe and stick around. In order to understand the psychology of the menstrual cycle, we need to first understand how it works biologically. Your menstrual cycle is regulated by something called HPO axis. That is basically a communication system between your ovaries and your brain. In fact, the ovaries and the part of your brain that are the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland communicate with each other constantly. And this axis controls all of the hormonal shifts that happens in your body throughout your menstrual cycle. The two hormones that are mainly involved in your cycle are progesterone and estrogen. For ease, let's think about progesterone as the hormone that is mainly involved in pregnancy and embryo development, whilst we're going to consider estrogen as the hormones that control female body changes. On this note, in this video, I'm going to refer to females and women when talking about the menstrual cycle. Please note that I will be doing this just from a biological, scientific, and research perspective. I do not consider women to be defined by menstrual cycle, uterus, or ovaries, nor I do think that you need any of these things to call yourself a woman. So, your menstrual cycle starts on the first day of your period. That is, the first day you bleed. On the first day of your period, both progesterone and estrogen are at their lowest. On this day, because your hormonal levels are low, your ovaries will send a message to your brain, in particular to the hypothalamus, requesting for help. In turn, your hypothalamus will send a message to the pituitary gland requesting to release an hormone called FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. The FSH travels to the ovaries and this prompts some follicles in your ovaries to grow. And as these follicles grow, they will release estrogen. So, the follicular phase of your cycle is characterized by a gradual increase in estrogen until it reaches its peak. Once estrogen is at its peak, the ovaries will send another message to the hypothalamus saying that we had enough of FSH and that we potentially need another hormone. So your hypothalamus will send a message to the pituitary gland to release another hormone called LH, that is the luteinizing hormone. LH will therefore travel to the ovaries, and once in the ovaries, it will cause the follicle that has just grown to release an egg. Welcome to ovulation. And what does this mean from a psychological perspective? Please note that everything I'm about to say is based on research on social and evolutionary psychology. It is obviously a generalization and it does not reflect the experience of every person with a uterus. I will just attempt to explain how our biology and our hormones could impact different areas of our lives. But obviously, luckily for us, we're not all biology. So keep this in mind while listening to this. The follicular phase of our cycle is, from a psychological, social, and evolutionary perspective, mating season. Please remember that humans are, at their core, animals, okay? In this phase of the cycle, our body will remind to us, and as we will see, also to possibly our partners, that mating season is open. Higher estrogen means higher serotonin, which means that we are in generally a better mood, we can feel more productive, more energetic, but also interestingly, more open to new experiences and to put more effort in our physical appearance. For example, some studies found that women during the follicular phase of their cycle were wearing more makeup, wearing sexier clothes, and also interestingly wearing more red. Other studies also showed that during this phase of the cycle, women also report higher marital satisfaction, feel more desire towards their partner, and are also more interested and feel more attracted to their partners. Possibly you might already know some of this because you would have sensed these experiences within yourself during this phase of your cycle. But what you might not know is how this phase of the cycle also impacts people around you. In particular, your partners or potential ones. In a really fascinating experiment, researchers decided to move their lab from a university to a strip club. Hear me out, this is gonna get very interesting. In strip clubs, there is a very quantifiable way to measure male attractions towards women. That is, their tips. So what these very creative researchers did was to calculate how much tips everyone working in the strip club was receiving during their shift. And they found something very interesting. Females ovulating received an average of £70 tips for that night. Those that were menstruating received an average of £35 in tips. Those in other phases of their cycle received an average of £50 tips. And, this may be interesting for another video if you want, women on the pill at an average of £37 in tips. This study potentially shows that during the follicular phase and in particular during ovulation, we not only feel better about ourselves, but we are also perceived as more attractive by others. Another fascinating study showed that in heterosexual couples, women were more jealous of their partners when they were in the ovulatory phase of their cycle, but also their partners were more jealous of them during this fertile window. So, as you can see, hormonal changes are not only changes in your body or your mood. They can literally shape the way you perceive reality, but also how people perceive you. But if you think that's interesting, wait until you see what happens after ovulation, when the vibe changes entirely. After ovulation, the follicle that is now empty of the egg will start to release progesterone. Progesterone basically starts preparing your uterus lining for a pregnancy. During this phase, LH, FSH, and estrogen drop. And if a pregnancy does not occur, then progesterone will drop as well, causing the uterus lining to shed, which basically causes your period to start again, starting the cycle all over again. So this is what happened biologically, but what happens psychologically? During the second phase of your cycle, your body is preparing for a pregnancy. So it shifts from attracting to nurturing. Now, I don't mean that a pregnancy is what you necessarily want, okay? But this is what your body is preparing for biologically. And because your body is preparing for a pregnancy, she will want you to rest and to take care of yourself. This is why you may feel more tired, lack energy, you might experience concentration difficulty and even insomnia because of all of these changes that happened that put our body at strain. Your serotonin level will decrease because the part of your brain that is responsible for producing serotonin will be busy coordinating all of these shifts happening in your body. So you might experience more irritability, anxiety, low mood. Some of these symptoms may be very, very severe for some women, and if that is your case, please speak to a doctor and even a therapist if that helps you manage your symptoms. In general, I really, really recommend meditation, as that is a very helpful tool to help you be more in sync with your body and really understanding what your body needs at different moments of your cycle. Of course, our bodies will also change because, as I said, your body is preparing for a pregnancy, so it will retain water. So you might see your body changing shapes in a way that is not necessarily good for you. You might see an increase of your appetite. You might see changes in your skin, so you might develop acne due to low levels of estrogen. All of this might make us feel worse about our bodies, thus increasing these feelings of low mood, frustration, irritation. Please, please, please be very kind with yourself during this phase of your cycle. As I always say, go back to your core needs foundation. So make sure that you're drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, eating well, and doing some form of physical activity. So whilst the follicular phase is about attracting, the luteal phase is about nurturing, so resting, taking care of ourselves and of our bodies, because this is what our body needs, because it is preparing, after all, for a pregnancy. And if we were to get pregnant, we will need to give that baby a lot of nurture and a lot of attention and a lot of care. So this is what our body requires from most of us during this phase of our cycle. And this is what most people don't realize about our cycle. It impacts us so much more than we think. But there is another twist that most people don't realize when talking about the cycle. As you can see, even though we call it the menstrual cycle, menstruation, so your period, is not really the start of the show, because ovulation is. If you don't ovulate, you don't menstruate. And this is why it is so important to track your cycle, because your cycle is a reflection of your overall health. And here is why. Your body needs to feel safe enough and healthy enough in order to ovulate. Remember that ovulation basically involves the release of an egg that needs to welcome a potential baby. So it's basically a preparation for pregnancy. Now, your body needs to feel safe enough and healthy enough in order to ovulate. Because if your body perceives that at that specific moment in time, because of environmental factors or because of how your overall health is, it's not safe to carry on a pregnancy, then it won't release an egg and ovulation won't happen. This means you won't have a period. Usually things that can influence your ovulation are whether you're eating properly, whether you're sleeping well, whether you're under stress, or even if you're ill. But even changes in the environment, so temperatures that are too high or too low, can usually disrupt your cycle, because again, your body will not feel the circumstances are optimal to carry on a pregnancy. So if you notice that you're missing period or that your periods are delayed, please go to your doctor and try to investigate whether there may be any underlying factors that are causing this. Us people with a uterus are so blessed because our menstrual cycle, for how annoying it can be sometimes, is a very effective way for our body to communicate with us and for us to understand what our body needs and is going through. So use this at your advantage. Now, I'm sure you all want to know about cycle syncing because it's becoming a very popular topic online, so let's talk about it. I am personally not a fan of cycle syncing because sometimes it can feel like a one-size-fits-all approach, which I do not condone at all, because each person's experiences are different and we kind of need to tailor our lives to our own individual needs. Also, there are not a lot of scientific evidences backing up cycle syncing. The truth is, as you probably understood from these videos, hormones and the cycle are very complex, and each person with a uterus will experience them in a different way. Some people have irregular cycles, which makes it very hard to plan life around cycle syncing. But also our hormones and our bodies can be affected by so many things that it is not always feasible to just cycle sync. Sometimes we might feel energetic during our luteal phase, or we might feel ill during our follicular phase. The best advice I can give you is to find out more about your body, listen to your body, and have a balanced life rather than following advices on the internet. And this brings us to the end of the video. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a bit of a different one, but it is a topic I am very passionate about. I was actually thinking to make this a series, so we did this video on the menstrual cycle. I would love to make another video on contraception, in particular hormonal contraception, and how that can impact our psychology. And potentially I might make one on menopause, but please let me know if that is a topic that interests you and if you will find this kind of videos interesting. So now you know how your menstrual cycle works, but if you would like to know more about what supplements you can take that are backed up by science and actual research, then you can watch this video here, or you can watch this video here that YouTube has picked up just for you based on your personal interests. So I will see you over there, or I will see you in the next video. Bye!